And we're live. Welcome to Music Matters with Jason Tramm. Thank you so much for joining us for our unique podcast community, where we explore the triumphs and challenges of the performing arts world as seen through the eyes of distinguished artists. Thank you so much for joining us today. You can watch today's show on YouTube, also Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, and you can hear it after the fact on all those platforms. Also, it'll be on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well down the road. So we've been growing to different platforms, and thank you so much for helping us grow. We recently hit 1,500 subscribers on YouTube, so if you're watching on that platform, smash the bell icon to join us and to learn more about our upcoming guests and topics. Here on Music Matters, we take you behind the curtain to see the artists behind the music in a variety of genres, from classical to contemporary, and we're so thrilled to have you here. We have a wonderful guest today. We have Mr. Roger Jaeger, a singer-songwriter based in California, but also very much active in Nashville and throughout the country. So it is not often that you find an artist like Roger Jaeger. His rare blend of indie and alternative music infused with singer-songwriter vibes and occasionally the sitar, which is awesome, has resulted in Roger performing in breweries, homes, and other venues all over the world. He's graced the stages of Nashville's legendary Bluebird Cafe to pubs in Ireland to colleges throughout the U.S. His music is influenced by One Republic Coldplay and has been licensed for use by MTV, Discovery, and NASCAR. He's also a very fine recording artist as well. Welcome, Roger.
Why, thank you. Good to be with you.
It's a pleasure. And how are things in Nashville these days?
Well, Nashville's great. I'm living in Redding, California. I'd lived in Nashville for 7 years before I moved there. So
certainly ground zero for singer-songwriters, right?
Yeah. I loved living here. It was really great. Got to meet a lot of great people. I was surrounded by amazing artists and musicians, and it caused me to grow and to learn so much. And it feels good to come back and write songs and do some work here. So
I just love the Nashville culture. I've had a lot of singer-songwriters who are either there or come back and forth, and they were telling me about this kind of like speed dating where you can bring your material in and other singer-songwriters sit and listen and they all comment, and that's where a lot of people find songwriting partners and co-producing people. What's it like? Do you find that to be a real helpful part of that culture?
I think so. I was a part of a group like that, and we met, probably for 3 years. We'd meet once a month. And it's been really fun to see some of the people that were a part of that group go on and do things. One of them is opening a show at the Ryman Auditorium here in Nashville,
Wow.
This Saturday. So that's just exciting to see, just this guy who's a singer-songwriter who was really amazing, and he's doing things. And so it's just exciting.
Well, you're doing a lot of things too, and you have such an interesting backstory. And so tell us, did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
Not always. When I was a kid, I wanted to write books. I wanted to be an author. And then around 13 is when I sort of got interested in music and got a guitar and started writing songs. Kind of poured my creative energy into songwriting. No one told me to or told me that I could, or I don't know. I just started to do that, and then I'm still doing it.
You started writing songs right around 13. You started to create new music, and did you have a background on the guitar? Did you play chords? How did you start that process?
My older brother had a guitar, and so he taught me my first few chords, and then I would practice for 3 hours a day or so, like at least, to just sit in my room and make up.
You were hooked right away.
Yeah. So I surpassed my brother within a couple months, actually, and but my parents got me guitar lessons, and then I was really involved with choir at school as well. So I had that happening, had this other kind of musical in my life, and so
as a college choir director, that makes me happy. That's wonderful. Well, what experience did your classical, your choral singing bring to your singer-songwriting?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is dynamics, and so we did some awesome things. Like I got to go sing in Carnegie Hall my freshman year with my choir, and so we're singing like these serious classical pieces, and parts where you're so soft, whisper, and then it's so loud you're almost shouting. So I learned to kind of like take those kind of dynamics and use them in my songwriting and in my performing in it.
Yeah, it's a really great thing is that there's so much levels. I mean, I get so bored with a lot of contemporary music. It's all the same. There's no stopping. There's no like letting the sounds, like, it's great to be loud, but sometimes it's great to just like have that contrast. And contrast is really what keeps people interested.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So you studied music in college, right?
Did, yeah. Went to for 1 year. Was at Belmont University in Nashville as a guitar major. So I was studying jazz and classical guitar. Had to grow out my fingernails so that I could pluck the strings correctly. I hated it at first, but grew to love it, and it taught me to play guitar in just a different way that I hadn't approached before. And then I actually moved to India the year after my year at Belmont. Was in India for a year. Learned sitar while I was there, so that had this other.
So let's talk about that. So what led you to take yourself around the world, the other side of the planet, to immerse yourself into something totally different?
I don't know.
I love it.
Yeah, I heard sitar on Jeff Buckley's Grace album. Was really drawn to it. Maybe I was a little bored with guitar, but. And then also someone gave me a CD of this band that did kind of a combination of acoustic guitar and sitar, and they sang songs in Hindi. They were called Aradhana. So I decided to move to India and just learn the sitar, do the traditional thing, get a guru. Did that. So ended up connecting with
Indian. I mean, do they speak? How was the language barrier?
They speak a lot of English, but I did learn a little bit of Hindi while I was there.
Great.
So maybe 200 words or something, enough to kind of get around a little bit.
Must be fascinating. It's so interesting. I get to guest conduct, and I've been in I've never been in India, unfortunately, or even Southeast Asia, but I've been in a lot of Eastern European countries, and the cultures are all so unique, and I just love immersing. When I'm conducting an orchestra or an opera company over there, I get to really immerse myself in the culture and just kind of get to know the musicians, and it's always an interesting point is just to be in another culture.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I've played in the UK and in Ireland and Australia, but I haven't done Eastern Europe or even like France or Germany or anything really. But that would be fun, I bet.
So tell me about what was the musical culture like in India, and what did that teach you, and how did that I'm sure that manifests in your music. So tell us how that all works.
Yeah, it's interesting because you've got Indian classical music, which is what sitar kind of comes from, but it's their classical music, and then you also have more modern Indian music. So it's similar to the West here, and so you actually see a lot more of them want to learn guitar and drums than learn the classical instruments. Unfortunately, that's
the result of social media and YouTube. And it's truly international. So people are. I have a dear friend of mine who grew up in suburban New York, who is the drummer for Junoon, which is one of Pakistan's biggest rock groups, and he travels back and forth. He tours with them, and it's just fascinating how, it's truly global our music scene is.
Yeah, well, what I found fascinating was Indian music. Or what they really like is about 20 years behind where we are now. So like when I went to India in 2006, they loved like 80s metal. And so
Motley Crue, they must have seen The Dirt on Motley Crue.
It was funny.
I don't know if you saw that movie, The Dirt. It was on Netflix. That was the rage. It was all about Motley Crue, and I grew up in Motley Crue at that time, and it was all of the craziness, and maybe that's what they're probably check that out.
Yeah, interesting.
Are they producing a lot of Indian hair metal bands? Is that something really big over there?
It is. I don't know. I don't think it's caught on like a huge national level. Like I don't think you can like turn on the radio and hear that. But you see a lot of like the indie bands and these like live rock band competitions. That's the kind of stuff they would
Probably big
like.
at the college campuses, right? That's where everything starts. The college campuses, we hear a lot of that great stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So how
But
did
yeah, the
that?
radio.
How did your guitar background help with the sitar, and did the sitar help with your guitar background?
I'd say both. Yeah, because I mean, learning sitar, it it basically I was learning scales, and so I already knew scales. Um, Learning sitar, you kind of think in, or this is the way I did it. I would think in the modes, like okay, this scale we're working on, or this raga is basically Mixolydian mode, and so then I could think of it that way, and then approach it from that way. But then a lot of the mechanics are mostly similar. Like you're using your fingers to push the string down, and so I didn't have to work through like, oh, am I pushing hard enough? Or I could figure that stuff out pretty quick because of my guitar experience.
All
So
those sympathetic vibrations from the extra strings that make the sitar such a unique sound. We love it.
yeah.
So how do in your in as you become a mature songwriter, how has that manifested itself in your music? That incredible spiritual and musical journey that you took.
So I've written some songs where because Indian music tends to stay home. Meaning what I mean by that is like if I'm playing in the key of D, um, you have a drone going, so you're playing D and A together the whole time to kind of lock that in, and then your melody's dancing around it, and it's not really about chords. Um, so there's some of my songwriting I've sort of used some of that. Um, but then I've also been able to, I don't know, kind of blend the two worlds a little bit. So I'll still write my songs, my singer songwriter songs, and have chords and have it's like a 3 minute radio radio friendly song, but then I'm able to like pull guitar in and like create the lead melodies on top in some areas, and but also blend it in and into the background for some other things.
That gives your music such a different sound. I noticed that when I listened to I was going through different parts of your catalog on Spotify and on YouTube, and it really gives an interesting flavor that is totally unique and really interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, I I like it. I don't know. It's weird, and some people like it and some don't. But just
Like anything with
trying things.
music, right? Music is so subjective. But what I love about today's audience is I have a lot of indie artists on the show, and people who like the indie artists want to get to know the artist. They want to know who they really are, and they want to look for this kind of behind the curtain look. And they kind of gravitate towards people they find interesting. So you must have you built quite a big audience for yourself. You're building a big audience, and people must really relate to that.
Yeah, a lot of people do. I think so. Yeah, people are fascinated by the story. Like, what you went? Why did you go to India? What's that about? So it's fun to share. Just
Any life lessons you learned in being in that culture and such an ancient and beautiful culture?
I learned. Um, so my first 6 months there, I lived with. Well, I didn't live with the family, but I was taken care of by a family. The wife was from Pennsylvania, just a white woman, and the husband was from South India, and they had two kids. Um, but they were kind of my initial contact, and I exchanged a few emails with my friend. His name is Jose. And so Joe said, "Okay, great. Why don't you go ahead and book your ticket? Uh, Come for 6 months. You can stay at my friend's house down the street, and then you can come to our house and have all your meals here. And I found a sitar teacher for you. She lives down. She's 5 minutes away, walking, and so I just learned this hospitality, and I developed this love where now like I love to have people come stay at my house and I'll host people for a week, and that was something my parents didn't do very much, and so I just learned to kind of love people in a different way, I guess.
Great lesson to learn. Now, when you're writing songs, what comes to you first? Is it the melody, is it the chords, or is it a mixture of this, or do you write the words first?
Yeah, it's just a mixture. There's kind of two different parts of it. So sometimes I'll just sit with an instrument, whether it's piano or guitar or sitar, and I'll be just kind of noodling, and then I'll find something that I think sounds good, and then I'll record it on my phone and keep it. And then the other side of it is that I also kind of keep a list of song titles. So if I hear someone say something, or I see a news article that says something interesting, or if I think about something, I'm like, oh, that could be an interesting song. So I'll save the title. And then eventually when I sit down to write, I'll try to bring those two things together. And
that's fantastic. And you said you have a love of writing from a young age. Does the poetry come natural for you, or is it something you've had to work at?
Both. I think that, I have a degree I'm decent with words, but then sometimes I also have learned to edit, to come back and look at the words again and think through whether that makes sense, or I use the word it here. What is it? Does anybody even understand what I'm talking about? But then I also do a lot of co-writing, so I'll write with other people, and sometimes they bring different strengths. Sometimes they're more of a lyricist, or sometimes they're more of a musician, and so I might have to lean more heavily one way depending on who I'm writing with. But I'm a hybrid writer in that sense, I guess. So
that's wonderful, and it must be really exciting to collaborate with other artists. Who are some of the artists you've worked with, and what do they bring to the table? How does it fire your creativity?
Yeah. Well, most recently, so I met a woman in Reading who is an amazing singer. Had written a couple songs maybe, but hadn't quite done anything yet. And so we met last summer, and then she decided, you know what, it's my time to do this. And so I sat with her, and I wrote 7 of the songs on her 10-song album.
Wow.
With her. And for her, that process was the songs were kind of just coming from her heart. Here's all the hard things that have happened in my life. Let's write about this today. And so we did that. Her name is Lauren Kelly.
Shout out to Lauren Kelly, another wonderful artist.
Yeah, and then another guy that wrote with us, Gabe Groppe is his name. He you might hear about him soon. I know he's got songs that are gonna start coming out this year, and he's an amazing singer. I'm trying to think. There's a girl. Her name's Elisa Turner. I wrote with her one time in Nashville. She's kind of a very cool artist. But most people I've written with, people probably wouldn't know.
It's okay. It's exciting. It's always interesting because, a lot of the names we might not know today, that's the songs that can be written by tomorrow. And that's what I find so fascinating about talking to different artists is seeing where they go and where life takes them, and what music brings to them and what they can bring to the world.
Yeah.
So tell me about the process in the studio. When was the first time you entered the studio? What's it like kind of becoming a studio artist, and what lessons have you learned along the way?
Well, I had a band in high school, and so I was writing songs, and then there was a guy at our church who was 30 something, and he co-owned this DJ company with his brother-in-law, and they had a recording studio as well, because I guess his brother-in-law did voice work for radio and stuff. So we recorded a record and released it when I was 15.
Wow.
And that was my first experience, was just in this little studio, and it was really bad. We didn't use a metronome. We plugged electric guitars like straight into the system instead of using amps and trying to get good tone. And we had cello, but the cellist couldn't play in tune, and so
That's a problem. But
just I'm grateful for that experience.
that's how you learn, right? Baby steps. It takes time. The studio is a challenge, and working with a producer and working with other people, and bringing them into the process. It's nothing is easy in music. It takes time and practice and years of getting comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think being in Nashville has been great because then I've gotten to work with that a lot more. And I before I moved back to Nashville a second time. Before I moved back, I hadn't really worked with producers. Like I'd been in recording sessions, but it was just an engineer. So he's just pushing record and okay, go. Okay, yeah, cool. Do you want to try it again? Okay, yeah, okay. So I was sort of self-producing without knowing that's what I was doing. But yeah, and then I learned being here what it's like to have someone with different creative ideas that you might not have, and you kind of wrestle over what that might look like. Or
Let's talk about that. Like some of your songs, like what's it like when you bring your material in and you start working with a producer who has different ideas? And I'm always amazed by some of them are such good creative people. They come up with such wild, and they can change a song. And I love to listen to the podcast about some of the massive bands that come in there, and then the producer is like the fifth member or sixth member of the band, and really does something really magical.
yeah, I've found that overall I really like it. Um, Producer I've worked with a lot is a guy named Ryan Poole, and he's based here in Nashville. Um, and he's from San Diego originally, and then he has a huge love for the Beach Boys and the Beatles, and so he loves like harmonies and sort of choral things. So say like, okay, here's my song, here's the chorus, and you'd be like, okay, that's great. Now what if why don't we create like a choir part behind it's not it's like doing its own thing. So he would do stuff like that. I never would have thought of it. And there were, I mean, sometimes like there were, he wanted to put horns on one of my songs, and that was nothing I had ever considered or thought would fit, but it ended up being really cool. So yeah, he's just great. He just has ideas that that are great. And then
Sometimes that just makes a song pop when you hear like a cello on there. You hear some beautiful harmonies that enrich the chorus. Yeah, it's just I'm always fascinated by that. Do you find that your songs change as you perform them too? Like when you just write a song, does the act of performing in front of an audience? Do you find that the songs sometimes change as you're doing them?
yeah, yeah. Because I think the more you perform something, you sort of, at least for me, I figure out like, okay, how do I lean into this? How do I make it interesting? So I develop like places where I stop and pause, or places where I get louder or softer. Um, there's one song I like to do live, and I usually close my show with it, but I'll if I'm in a system and the room is small enough, I'll unplug the guitar and like teach everyone the chorus part and have the crowd sing along, and then like walk around the room. But if you hear the recording of it, it's like a full rock band sort of do or something. Uh, but
Yeah, I love that idea that performing brings a piece to life, and it can change things around. It can bring new ideas, and like feeling the energy of the audience. They must love singing along. Audiences love to sing along in concerts. It keeps them part of the act in a different way. That just sitting listening, just that participation really adds a lot to a live show.
yeah, it's awesome.
So tell me about what you've been doing for this last year and a half. Live shows have been severely curtailed or mostly canceled. We've had some of the Canadian artists on the show, and none of them are performing. Canada's locked down more than the States, and they're still locked down completely. We had a couple of bigger rock bands in Canada, and I was surprised there were no live performances. And they're like, well, it's much colder here, so we can't do the spring and we can't do the late summer. I didn't think about that. But have you been doing live performances throughout this period?
Yeah, I've done some. I did do a few online, and that was okay. It just hasn't quite been my favorite thing to do. There is I have played a few times at a winery in Reading where they would just kind of have a lawn space so people could come and set up their chairs or blankets on the ground, and then I'm just playing outside.
What was it like to play for live people after a long break? Was it special?
It was special, but I also felt really rusty.
I'm hearing that a lot from my colleagues, especially the opera singers. Well, everyone really, like every artist. I mean, if you're not out there doing it regularly, it's surprising. I had a choral rehearsal in June, and I'm like, man, I haven't been in front of people in a year. I'm used to doing 10 rehearsals a week, and then it's like, oh, people. I have to keep my chops up, and it's amazing.
Yeah. It definitely felt a little awkward. Like, how does this song go again? Oh, I should have practiced before I.
Thank you for sharing that, because I felt the same way. I'm like, why did my hand go that way? It's supposed to go that way, and and the singers were just as rusty. And they were, like if you didn't remember to bring water, your voice gets tired because you're not used to doing that type of workout. It's like any other workout. If you're not used to singing like that for 2 hours, you get tired.
Yeah. So
did the audience appreciate it as much as you did?
I think so. I think people are really excited to have things to go to and something to do.
Live music is such a gift. It's there's nothing like it. And we've all had our share of Zoom performances from our people that we love and our music artists and our Spotify lists and all that, but it's not the same as watching them in person.
Yeah, definitely not.
So, it's so interesting to see how artists have handled the COVID period. Like you said, some people, I just had a band on yesterday, the Soap Girls. They do 4 live streams a week for their very large audience. I've had I have opera singers at the Met who are on TikTok doing vocal clinics. I mean, crazy things that you'd never expect. I'm always amazed by how creative the creative track people can be. And some people have done very little performing and have been studying, introspective. They've been writing music, they've been recording, they've been composing. It's just so fascinating. What's something you've learned about yourself during this period?
About myself? Wow, I don't know. Well, maybe I had this experience when COVID began. I think in 2019 I played upwards of 130 shows or something. Spent a lot of that time by myself in my car, driving around the country, for 2-3 weeks at a time. Very lonely. And I was playing mostly house shows, so I'd be playing for maybe 20, 30 people at a time. And I think a lot of creative people wrestle with it. A lot of songwriters for sure wrestle with it, but kind of like, is this as good as it's going to get? And then, so when the pandemic began and then suddenly it wasn't even an option to tour anymore, in a way I was relieved. I was like, okay, I don't have to worry about this right now. I guess I'll go to Home Depot and get some paint and paint my door. And I didn't even write songs at all for
wow.
the first thing. So I had a little break, which was good, and then kind of had a reckoning where I kind of came back, said, okay, yeah, I need to keep doing this, and so maybe that's what I learned. It was like, okay, I needed a break, but I don't want to quit, and let's let's go. Let's try again. Let's try
That's
other
good.
things.
Eventually, the creative, as being an artist who's like, I got to do something artistic. It's just part of us, right? It's like you got to create. For a month I was teaching via Zoom or Skype or whatever, and then I did lots of yard work when I wasn't, and just kind of keep my head off it and just be be present. And then after about a month, I cleaned up my yard pretty well, and it was in better shape than it's ever been. All the stuff I have neglected, and then all of a sudden I said, got to do something creative. I can't conduct, I can't travel, but I can talk to artists, and that's why I started the podcast. And it was just like, sometimes you find out things about yourself that you never learned. I never even imagined I would do something like this, but I've gotten to speak to such interesting people like yourself.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a great idea.
Well, my son, who's in the background, he's a big part of it. He was the tech genius. I'm terrible with technology, but I like to talk. So we're a good team on that.
Awesome.
So you've built a sizable audience. Your songs get a lot of play. You're on all the active platforms, and you do a lot of performing at both venues large and small. What's it like to see that your music has an international reach? What's it like when you get messages from people all over who people respond to your songs?
It's cool. I think that is a good feeling to kind of realize, okay, there's people that I don't know who are connecting to my songs, and that's great. They're not my friends, like saying something nice that I feel good. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. I had one. I think it was somebody from Ireland messaged me on Twitter a couple years ago, and hey, my friend and I love your song the way it should be. I would love to surprise him for his birthday. Is there any way you would make an acoustic recording of it just for him? I'm going, how do these guys in Ireland know my song? What do you mean it's your favorite song? Like it's kind of mind blowing. Like what?
Isn't that great that you can create something like across the world, and I love the reach that artists can have today using social media and using platforms. It's just amazing.
Yeah. So it's wild. It's my stuff's out there. I did a couple. So I've done a couple of Christmas songs where I used the sitar. So I did kind of this sitar version of it, and then did some Facebook ads to kind of target India just to see what would happen, and somehow a whole bunch of people in Calcutta really liked them. And so I don't know what it was. I targeted like all the major cities, but Calcutta, just everybody in India that shared it or commented was from Calcutta somehow. So
fascinating how things distribute in this digital world of ours. And I always like, what does it mean to be an indie artist? What does it mean to you?
Well, independent. I guess my understanding is just like we're doing this without a record label, or I guess there are indie record labels, which means they're not connected to one of the major record labels. But yeah, I've done, my music career has been very do-it-yourself, DIY. I did have a manager for a couple years at one point, but that manager, producer, but that's kind of the biggest that my team has been. I have a booking agency that books me in some colleges, but not a whole lot of shows. But yeah, for the most part, I'm doing it all. Like I'm writing the songs, and I'm contacting people like yourself, submitting my songs to opportunities. I'm the one hitting send on Reverb Nation, and I'm booking my own tours, and it's all me. I'm doing the accounting, keeping the books, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's I started the show the same way, grassroots, and I just love the kind of building my own brand. And it's and I also, I guess, I've had an agent as a conductor, but a lot of I do it myself, and it's that do-it-yourself attitude. You can do incredible things these days with the platforms that are available.
You can't. I think the challenge that I have run into though is there's so much I can do myself, but then there are just some areas where it's, you know what, it's going to be more worth it if I hire someone to make my cover art than trying to do it myself, because I could use that time in a better way, and I'm not very good at
Me
cover
too.
art.
Me too. My daughter designed the logo. I have 4 kids, so my daughter did our logo. She was a senior in high school going to college, and she just loves to do that stuff. And my son does all the tech stuff. So I used the whole family on there, except my youngest son, who's a drummer. He's too busy practicing the drums. He's at Berkeley this summer. But it's just you have to use the team around you and find good people.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I've also learned. It's good to have a team. Good to have people that can help.
So we have a question from the audience. Tell us about a couple of the songs that mean the most to you that you've written, and where did they come from?
So I have a song called "Start Over." It's probably my most well-known song, but the single I just released a few months ago, "It's My Time," has surpassed it.
Wow! Congratulations.
But "Start Over" was sort of the first song, not the first song I put guitar in. It was the second. But I feel like it's a song that, one, displays kind of this Indian side of my musicality very well. But then subject matter, I wrote it after a breakup, and
Great material, always has been.
but it kind of poses the question: well, what if I could go back in time, and knowing what I know now, start over and redo this, make a better outcome, but then realizing we don't get to do that, but what we do get is a chance to start again right now. So the song was about that, and I think a lot of people really connected with it. It's one of my favorite songs I've ever put out.
I'm looking here on YouTube at 16,000 views and many more on Spotify, and it's so cool that we can see now what's it like for you making videos? How do you produce your videos? I know back in the old days, videos would have $1 million budgets and these huge productions. And I love it. I'm always amazed by how creative the indie artists are, because none of us have that type of budget and money to throw around. How do you produce these things that are getting seen by thousands of people?
Yeah, most of them. So Ryan Poole, my producer, also does video, and so he has his own. Yeah, so we kind of worked out just on an indie budget. Like, okay, do we need to rent a camera? Okay, let's do this. And he would storyboard and come up with ideas for a song, and then we've traveled together all over the U.S. So "Start Over" was shot in an abandoned apartment building in Nashville, and then I think mostly there. And then we had another video that was shot a couple hours from Nashville, but then part of it we shot in California and just drove around to different locations like sand dunes and beaches, and then we have another that we shot completely in Oregon. So it is just kind of like me walking around and then him with the camera, like, okay, go walk over here. Let me play the song. Singing along. So just kind of,
just do it. And lip sync with your guitar in some different places and find a cool place. And the videos are beautiful. I've seen them. I really enjoy your work. And there's a rumor that you may sing on the show. What are you going to sing for us today?
Oh, well, I might sing "It's My Time," actually.
Fantastic. Now that we know the story, it'll be even more exciting. This is Roger Jaeger. He's going to sing "It's My Time."
I'm not impatient, just tired of waiting. Turned every stone, but none could cure my cravings. I've been so close, I've seen almost another near miss. It's just the way it goes. All my life, I've been waiting for something to dissatisfied. I kept finding nothing. Used to listen when I was told it'll work out down the road. Well, I made the climb. Now it's my time. Whoa, whoa. Used to listen when I was told it'll work out down the road. Well, I made the climb. Now it's my time. Ooh, I kept pushing through. Paid my dues. When storms would come, my course held true. And I might be wrong, but I lasted this long. And fire may fall, but I keep marching on. All my life, been waiting for something to satisfy. I kept finding nothing. Used to listen when I was told it'll work out down the road. Well, I made the climb. Now it's my time. Whoa, whoa. Used to listen when I was told it'll work out down the road. Well, I made the climb. Now it's my time. And I'm not saying I'm invincible. I know I'm not. But I tell you, I'm gonna give it all I've got. And all my life, been waiting for something to satisfy. I kept finding nothing. Used to listen when I was told it'll work out down the road. Well, I made the climb. And all my life, been waiting for something to satisfy. Kept finding nothing. Used to listen when I was told it'll work out down the road. Well, I made the climb. Now it's my time. Whoa, whoa. Used to listen when I was told it'll work out down the road. Well, I made the climb. Now it's my time. I made the climb. Now it's my time.
Awesome. Great song, man. So good. So much dynamics in there, so much musicianship, and I just love that tune.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it.
So where can we see you? Where can people go to find out more about you, and where can they go to hear your music?
Yeah, I have a website, rogerjaegermusic.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, probably most active on Instagram and then Facebook and then Twitter. But yeah, you're welcome to check those out. I've got a YouTube channel as well. So like all the videos you were talking about are on there. Actually, there's a new video for that song dropping tomorrow.
Nice. Make sure you subscribe to get all the latest updates to Roger's music as it comes out. A show coming out, as a video coming out tomorrow. Nice.
Yeah.
What's the name of the song?
So there. It's my time.
Oh, the video for what video is dropping tomorrow?
So yeah, it's a live performance, like with guitar and a choir in the background. So it's my time live is what it's called.
Awesome.
So.
Well, we'll definitely look out for that, and as soon as it drops, I'm going to also put it on the Music Matters site and on my sites too, because people should definitely hear it, because that's a great song.
Sounds good.
Roger, thank you so much for joining us on Music Matters today. And what's the next show you have coming up?
Next show, well, I'm playing a house concert in Nashville this Saturday.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, continued success, and I look forward to hearing your work as it comes out, and all the best. Thank you for joining us on Music Matters with Jason Tramm. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on upcoming guests and topics. Follow us on our various social media platforms. You can hear us on Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, Google, and Apple iTunes podcasts, and anywhere podcasts are heard. Thank you so much, and remember, keep music alive.